Welcome to Bowl Gymnasium in Pullman, Washington, as we get ready for the final match of the Cougar Challenge. And boy, what a good one do we have in store for you. It is the Washington State University Cougars, undefeated so far here at home, ranked 13th in the country, taking on a BYU team who is number 8 in the country. Steve Grubbs along with you as we get ready for what should be a great matchup to wrap up this Cougar Challenge, as two teams looking to go perfect on the weekend get set to collide in Pullman. For Washington State to get to 2-0 and remain perfect, they had to get through the Towson Tigers last night, and Towson did put up quite the fight. How about an opening set where we had 12 ties and 5 lead changes? Towson even had a set point, but the Cougars win the opening set 26-24. They go on to take set number 2, 25-20, and finish things off with a sweep and a 25-21 third set victory for the Cougars. Once again, for Washington State, it was a well-balanced attack for the Cougs. Amana Sanovic led the way with 11 kills, but Pia Timmer, Maggie Halasheva, they each had 8 kills for Washington State. Meanwhile, for BYU, they had double duty last night and yesterday afternoon. They took on the Towson Tigers, and Towson took a set off BYU, but BYU would come back to win it in 4. They also would win in straight sets over UC Irvine, so BYU not only ranked 8th in the country, but they stay perfect. And of course, last year in Provo, they were able to sweep Washington State early in the season. So which Cougar team will win tonight? It's 8th-ranked BYU. It's the 13th-ranked Washington State University Cougars. Starting lineups and first serve next on Pac-12 Insider. Steve Grubbs, Evan Charney heading your way. Number 13, Washington State, 7-1 on the season, taking on the 8th-ranked BYU Cougars, a perfect 8-0 on the season. The Cougars perfect here in Bowler at 5-0 in 2023. Evan, this should be a lot of fun tonight and what should be a rather electric atmosphere here in Pullman.
Absolutely, Steve. I can already feel it here in Bowler. You can see all the fans starting to even fill up in the rafters up there. And with 2 top 25 teams playing, you know you're in for a good match.
The student section is full. Let's take a look now at your starting lineups. First of all, for the 8th-ranked BYU Cougars, it'll be Kate Pryor, who starts as a middle blocker. She's out of Henderson, Nevada. Also getting to start their setter, Whitney Bauer, a 5'9" senior out of Nampa, Idaho. Erin Livingston, 6'2" senior out of Corona, California. Also on the outside, Claire Little, 6'3", just a freshman out of Winchester, California. Mia Lee, a freshman who's a pretty good right side hitter out of Vineyard, Utah. She is in the starting lineup. Meanwhile, also, you do have the middle blocker, Whitney McEwen Larnaeus out of Bountiful, Utah. She is a middle blocker at 6'3", and their libero is Kamiley Hiapo, a transfer, and she is out of Gilbert, Arizona. Meanwhile, for the Washington State University Cougars and their starters, as they are being introduced to the crowd, Ilana Sanovic, the transfer from Arizona State, 6'1" grad player out of Sarajevo. Pia Timmer, 5th-year player out of Germany, 6'2". Katie Ryan, your right side hitter, 6'5" junior out of Rathdrum, Idaho. Argentina Ung, the setter, senior out of Sonora, Mexico. Maggie Halasheva, middle blocker, 5th-year player out of Prov, Czech Republic. Alana Radakovic, middle blocker, 6'2" grad player from San Francisco. And Carly Basham, the libero for Washington State, another 5th-year player out of Louisville, Kentucky. A lot of experience and a lot of really good players getting set to duke it out right here. And all of a sudden you see the flag unfurl when it comes to the student section. We are Wazoo. That'll be part of their battle cry tonight. The students are here, we are here, and this should be a lot of fun.
Looking at the lineups for tonight, Steve, both teams, as you mentioned, have some heavy hitters. And I can only imagine that both coaches are going to be putting their best players on the court as much as possible. With a ranked team versus a ranked team, it is going to be a battle for the ages.
Washington State Cougars and the crimson tops, the white numerals. BYU and their blue tops and white numerals. Again, if you are just joining us because it is top 25 against top 25 and you haven't been with us either of the prior 5 matches over these 2 weekends that the Cougars have hosted tournaments, new TerraFlex court, renovated building here inside Bowler Gymnasium. And another thing they did is they did that in line where the BYU servers are going to be here in the opening set. and that is going to be filled with rowdy students in the student section.
I think hopefully the Cougs would, the student section of course, would have some sort of effect on the servers on this side of the court, whether it's when the Cougs are over there and they're cheering them on, or if they're trying to rattle BYU.
All right, we get things started. Carly Basham at the service line for Washington State, and we officially get this one underway tonight. One of the big non-conference matchups on a Friday night in the NCAA. Pia Timmer setup goes cross-court. That one dug out by Hiapo. Now from the back row, hit over by BYU. That glanced off of Arentina Ung and Aaron Livingston, who had 15 big kills in the matchup against Towson in the opening match for BYU. Both teams kind of had their, I don't want to say struggles, but were tested by Towson in this tournament.
Yeah, Towson put up a fight, and again, they're not an awful team. They had a solid record last year, and they definitely brought the heat in this tournament.
Timmer takes that serve. They will set it up for Pia. That one going to be tooled off a block attempt for BYU. So the Cougars answer BYU's side out with a side out of their own. We will do our best tonight, but remember, both teams are the Cougars, so we will do our best to go BYU and Washington State instead of Cougs and Cougars. But, you know, I mean, you can follow along. You got the picture, but you know what we're talking about.
The main point is whoever wins this one would theoretically be the better Cougars, no?
Certainly on this night, yes, absolutely. Of course, these two teams met up a year ago in Provo. BYU got the better of Washington State then. We'll see if the Cougars can exact some home court revenge tonight. Here's a set to the middle, and that one put away by Whitney McEwen-Larnaeus. And it's 2-1 BYU. Two things that I think that's going to be interesting to watch here is, A, obviously BYU now, for the first time in the home venue, has got the size to match with Washington State at the net. And then I'll get to the second thing, but first I'll let you talk about that in a bit. But first, the former Cougar, Aria McCumber, comes in. She serves. It's hit back over by Washington State. And out of the right-hand side, punched across. Ung will play it. That means Basham will set. Timmer going up for it. That one will fall in. It's 2-2. But again, you look at that BYU front line, the Cougar front line, we're going to be pretty evenly matched as far as height and size and strength at the net.
Yeah, with the first couple of matches, for the Cougs at least, you've seen that they've had the size advantage, but they definitely have, for BYU, they have their outside hitters and their middle blockers, definitely a good amount of them hitting over 6 feet tall.
Timmer with the serve, set to the outside for BYU. Basham there to play it. Will try and chase it down. Now Isanovich goes up for it. Now BYU back with it, and out to the outside, and up the line, and picking up a kill this time is going to be Elise Stowell. She had 12 kills against Towson, and so far 5 straight side outs from BYU. The other point I was going to make is also the speed. You've noticed already some quick action as far as quick passing and things like that with these two teams.
And we saw it a little bit on WSU's end of it in the match last night against Towson, with a lot of athleticism shown on the court by both, specifically Basham and Norval.
Well, a service error from Mia Lee, and so that's now 6 consecutive side outs. We've gone a point apiece each of the way through the first 6 points, and our third tie of the opening set. Now Magda Halashova with the serve. Set to the middle, punched across, but there to get to it is Norval. Now Isanovich goes up, tipped at the net, and for the first time we see somebody score on their own serve. For the first time we see back-to-back points, and it belongs to Washington State. And with that, they move ahead 4-3 in the opening set.
Iman Isanovich had a great performance against Towson yesterday with 11 kills, a service ace, a block, 7 digs, and hitting for .391 hitting percentage.
Now, Cougar Invite MVP a week ago has been one of the leaders this weekend as well. The transfer out of Arizona State, not quite on the doorstep, but closing in on 1,500 kills in her collegiate career. Here's the set to the right side for Lana Radakovic, another one of the newcomers for Washington State, but that one dug out and BYU goes after it. Basham there to receive it, and then Isanovich hammers it down for Washington State. And it's 5-4, and you can tell already with some of the celebrations after these points, this one means a little bit more when it's number 13 versus number 8.
And one thing to be looking for in this game, as we talked with Jen earlier, is their game plan is always to mess up the formation in the setting for the other team. And in the game yesterday for Towson, WSU was really able to back that up with Pia Timmer having some great plays out of position, amongst others.
Some good serving can get them out of system. This time BYU able to finish off the pointers. They get it over to Erin Livingston, and she'll put it away. So we're now even at 5 apiece. We've been even on each of the first 5 points in this opening set. Now all locked up at 5-5. And Whitney Bauer, the 5'9" setter out of Nampa, Idaho, now to serve for BYU. That one's going to sail long, and it's going to be 6-5 in favor of the Cougs of Washington State.
Going back to that last point, Erin Livingston currently leads BYU with 103 kills. So WSU will certainly want to keep their eyes on her.
Amana Sanovich now serving that one across. Here comes the set to the outside. Asanovich there to pick it up on a dig. Set outside for Pia Timmer. That one got through. Livingston went up for the block, but it got past her on a deflection. And Washington State, for the first time, has opened up just the tiniest bit of breathing room. Now a multiple point lead. It's now 7-5. Again, a big-time matchup here. One of a few on the docket here tonight involving Pac-12 teams. There's a serve from, or an attack, I should say, from Livingston, partially blocked at the net. That will set up Katie Ryan, but that one gonna miss a little bit wide, and on the attacking arrow, point to BYU. But again, as you look at it, don't want to say anything like locks because we're only the 3rd week into the season, but these two teams certainly seem made for the NCAA tournament. Now it's not only getting in, but how well can you prep that resume by the end of the season? Meanwhile, a good serve that time by Livingston, and that'll be the first ace for BYU. And with that, we're back to even after the Cougars got a couple in a row. BYU was answered with 2 straight, and now we're even at 7 points apiece. Livingston set and brings the right arm forward. Basham there to play it. Katie Ryan this time finding the range, and that one will be off of Livingston and into the seats, and Washington State moves back in front 8-7.
BYU's definitely going to want to keep their eye on Katie Ryan. We didn't see too much from her in the first 2 sets yesterday against Towson, but in that 3rd set, she did proceed to heat up and come out with 7 kills.
Now the next serve will be that from Basham. It's into the net, so a service error. It's been a well-balanced attack for Washington State so far this season. It's been Asanovich leading the way at nearly 3.5 kills per set, but you also have Timmer at 3 kills per set. Right behind her, Katie Ryan at just under 3, and Magdia Halasheva chipping in almost 2.5 kills per set. Meanwhile, Timmer finding the back right corner. She'll put that one away, and it's now 9-8 Washington State. So Pia off to a strong start. She's 4 kills and 7 attacks, and both teams pretty efficient as we get things rolling here. Washington State hitting .462, while BYU hitting .333 so far in the early going. Backing up to play the serve, Livingston. Set to the outside. That's a very strong kill attempt. Asanovich is going to go all the way back to try and get to it, but can't. And Elise Stowell puts away the kill for BYU.
Going back to Pia Timmer having a pretty hot start in this one. You really like to see that, as she's halved her kill count from yesterday with only 18 points total in this first set so far.
All even at 9 apiece. 8 of the 9 points we've been tied upon, and a good serve, but Basham does get the pass off, and then it's hit from the back row over by Asanovich. BYU to the outside, blocked back by Halasheva. Now the set to the right this time, and another block from Magda, but covered by BYU. Punched across this time. There to get to it, Norval. Magda dropping the hammer, and the Cougars of Washington State now leading at 10-9.
That was great timing on Magda's part. The way they set it up, perfectly timed it so the ball was just going to be over the net to allow for the best, most powerful hit that she could have hit there.
Now it'll be Timmer at the service line with the Cougars up 10-9 here. Washington State with the 1-point edge. Serve to the back corner. Livingston with the pass, backing up the set. Meanwhile, it's Norval got a piece. Asanovich going to try and clear the net, and despite her valiant effort, it ends up out of bounds, and it will be now even at 10 points aside here after an attacking error for Washington State. So 10-10, 9 ties. And we go back and forth in this opening set, and Claire Little now to serve for BYU. Ung to the right for Magda on the slide, all the way back to the back line. They were chasing it down. If that was going to fall in, Washington State might have been in trouble, but it was just long. Magda had enough on that one that it goes all the way to the back line and beyond, and the Cougars will get the kill in an 11-10 lead. Magda now to the service line. That serve bounces off the net and crosses. Set to Livingston. She'll get the kill now for BYU, and she now has her third kill, and now we're even at 11 points apiece.
I think we're going to see a common theme again in this match where we have not had a timeout yet, and we might have to wait until that first media timeout, as the coaches are going to be saving them till a little bit later.
Yeah, certainly each team just letting them kind of jab at each other. There's been no big hooks or knockout blows. Livingston able to get that past the front wall of the Cougars, and so BYU with back-to-back points. Again, it's been mainly point for point. Every once in a while somebody will score two in a row, and then the other team answers with two in a row, and now it's 12-11 BYU here as we approach the midway point of set number one. Timmer with the pass. Valentina Ung just gets it across. BYU trying to get to it. They're able to get to it and get it across the net. So they extend the point. Now can Asanovic put it away? She is going to find the back corner for a point. Oh boy, BYU extended it. Then BYU thought maybe there's too much on that. And even though they were a little out of system, Amon still found a way to find the back corner on that one. So now 12 apiece here in set number one, as we've been watching some high quality stuff here through the first 24 points. Valentina Ung serve, a little bit long, and the service error gives BYU the point.
And one thing that gives me a little bit of hope for WSU, one thing that they can take advantage of is in the Towson games. Towson did take one from BYU, but WSU was able to hold their own last night.
Service error now for BYU, so one on each side. It's now 13 points apiece. We could be in store for a match like they just saw in the Big Ten Pac-12 Challenge. That was a matchup between number 6 Oregon and number 10 Minnesota. We'll let you know how that one finished up. That was one of the other big matches on the night. Washington State a service error. It goes 5 sets, and how about this? They had to go extra in the 5th, and 10th ranked Minnesota knocks off the Ducks 16-14 and wins that one in 5. But how about those two teams going back and forth?
There you go. It's a great night for NCAA volleyball.
Now the set to the right for Katie Ryan, going up the line right at the net. There's Katie Ryan to knock it across, but it's a little bit out of bounds, and BYU with just the slightest edge here as we reach the media timeout in set number one. So I believe we take the timeout, and we will. So we'll step aside here from Bowler Gymnasium. Glad to have you in Pullman. There was a question as to whether or not we were taking the media timeout. Now they have confirmed that we will step aside. 8th ranked BYU 15. 13th ranked Washington State 13. We will be back right here to Pullman, Washington after we take a timeout as well. You're watching Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. The first timeout of the night became a media timeout, and BYU to the service line as we come back. Numbers pretty similar, just like the scoreboard. BYU out hitting Washington State 421-400. That is their second ace of the night, and this is our largest separation in the opening set. It's a set that we have had 12 ties and a couple of lead changes already, but BYU now with their biggest lead at 16-13.
And looking back to BYU's previous game against UC Irvine, they did take it in 3 sets, but each set, UC Irvine closed that gap a little bit. So hopefully the BYU Cougars can hope to avoid having that fatigue.
Kia Timmer able to finish that point off. The Cougars, their third match of the weekend. They've gone every night now for 3 consecutive nights, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. BYU had a couple yesterday and now this one tonight, so third match of the weekend for both teams. Just a little more compressed time for BYU side of it. Service error from Washington State, so far the Cougars of the Washington State side of things haven't quite dialed in their serve. No aces so far, 5 service errors. Meanwhile, it's 2 aces and 3 service errors for BYU as they bring in Mia Lee to serve. There to play it will be Timmer. Set to the right for Katie Ryan. That one blocked back, and that'll be this time on the block Whitney McEwen-Laraneas and also Elise Stoll there for the block.
Going back to those errors, what you really want to try and see is they had that with Towson. Towson had a couple errors yesterday, and you hope to see both teams avoiding those errors tonight.
Washington State a timeout as they've been outscored 3 of the first 4 points after the media break. So we'll step aside from Pullman. So happy to have you with us from Buller Gymnasium tonight. It's BYU 18, Washington State 14, and we step aside. It's Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. To Pullman, Washington, and Buller Gymnasium, 18-14 BYU with the lead, and it'll be a serve from Mia Lee here as its serve is on the way and played by Barbero. Set to Magda Hawashua, dug out by BYU and then punched across. Magda will set now for a Katie Ryan tip. That's off BYU and out of bounds, and important there for the Cougars of Washington State to get the point because BYU is starting to pull away just a little bit. 18-15 now, and Barbero, who has come in to play the back row for Alana Sonovich, will now take her spot at the service line for the Cougs. Again, one of the newcomers, freshman out of, this is Julia Norville who checked in, my mistake. Here's the serve, and that's going to find the sideline for BYU. Meanwhile, the Cougars not thinking that hit the sideline, and Jen Greeny, due to the reaction from her players, they're going to say, so again, they will challenge whether or not the call was in or not. They called it on the line. The players had their reaction. Jen gonna trust her players and gonna have them go back and take a look at this on our first review of the night and our first look at it. Ooh, it looks like you see a little crimson there between the white and the ball. Now again, the call was in, so we get another look at it, and this is our first angle. And they will zoom in just a little bit as they get a chance, and it's at a sharp angle. They're also, by the way, they can look at whether or not anybody's in the net on this as well, but I think the big thing is in on the line or not, but they're also looking at the net. But I think that what they're looking at is whether the ball is in or out on the sideline.
I think that's what was challenged.
Yeah, that was what was challenged according to our referee. They are continuing to look at a few other things, and you did see that bounce, and I thought that first look, I thought there was just a little sliver of crimson, but we'll see if there's enough to overturn this or not. So we'll get the explanation.
Ball is out. The call's going to be reversed as Washington State's point.
Okay, so the call will be reversed as Washington State will win the challenge. It is indeed out of bounds, and the Cougars will celebrate that. Again, the Cougar players immediately saying, no, I don't think that was in, and they obviously had the best viewpoint of it. Jen Greeny didn't because she was on our side of the net, which is the opposite side, but that's a good job by the Cougars getting that challenge.
And you could also hear the fans' reaction on that one, and again.
So Washington State to within a couple. There's an attempt, and there's a ball roofed down by Arentina Ung of Washington State. The Cougar setter goes up to be big on that one. There'll be an assist there as well, but Arentina right there along with Magda Yahalasheva. And by the way, since Magda gets an assist on that one, she is now officially tied for 6th all-time in conference history in total blocks with that block. All right, there's an attempt, and it will be Kate Pryor to put that one away on the kill. So after Washington State scores 3 in a row, a side out to BYU, and they take a 19-17 lead.
Pryor will be another BYU weapon that they will have up their sleeve with 11 kills, 5 blocks, and an assist against UC Irvine.
So 19-17 BYU after that side out. The former Coug of Washington State, McCumber, now serving, and that's going to be an ace. Aria out of Hawaii. She, of course, played with Washington State and then ultimately ends up to transferring to BYU. Meanwhile, our little GoPro net cam got knocked on the side, and so they will grab a chair to make sure, because that's also the camera that gets used on the replay. So it does become very important that they get that camera. It's not only just So you guys get good looks, and we're on the opposite side of what you're looking at right now. But on the other side, they've got to, again, that GoPro where they get a really good look at the net. And obviously, if you have a big point that's worth challenging, it's important that they get that thing set just right. By the way, with that ace for BYU, now a 20-17 lead. Really competitive opening set here. BYU, though, with the advantage as we're closing in towards the end of set number 1.
And you really like to see this momentum coming from BYU. Again, a big part of their offense tonight has been Aaron Livingston, Kate Pryor, Elise Stowell. They've really helped BYU to carry that momentum.
Timmer to Ong to the right side for Magda. That one going to be a little bit long, and on the attacking air, another point for BYU, and now it's 21-17. Jen Greeny going to call a timeout. Washington State's going to need a charge here at the end of the opening set. Right now it's the undefeated and 8th-ranked BYU Cougars with a road lead. It's again closing in on the end of the first set, but still got a little bit of time left. 21-17 BYU as we step aside. It's Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. 21-17 BYU with the advantage, and they will stay at the service line. Serve across played by Pia Timmer, overpass, and a point for BYU is again McCumber doing a great job at the service line, and BYU with now 3 consecutive points.
And on that last serve, you did hear the WSU fans a little bit giving some heat to the server.
Basham on serve receive here. It'll be set up for Asanovic, block back, Amon covers it. Dumped across by Artinong, but then blocked right back. Now it'll be Timmer from the near side, and that is going to be just a little bit wide. McCumber was diving out of it, but apparently didn't make contact before it ends up out of bounds. And now BYU on a 5-0 run as the Cougars had scored to get within 1 at 18-17, but BYU now up by a half a dozen. All right, the set to Pia Timmer going up the line, and that one gonna miss long, and it's now 6 consecutive points for BYU, and they've got set point here. So again, after so much action early with 12 ties and a couple lead changes, BYU pulling away here in the very end of this opening set. Asanovic swings. Now the set to the right for BYU, blocked back by Timmer. Now the big swing, but just a little bit long from their setter, Whitney Bauer, who got offensive on that attempt. And now the Cougars will have the serve, but they will need 6 in a row themselves now from the serve of Pia Timmer. 24-18 BYU, and Pia at the service line. That serve played by BYU, and Bowers is going to put it away, and the 8th-ranked BYU Cougars have taken the opening set here in Pullman. Again, 2 top 15 teams. I guess you can even get a little bit more precise. 2 top 13 teams playing here in Pullman. But the opening set to the 8th-ranked BYU Cougars, they win at 25-18. We'll come back, take a look at some of your opening set numbers, and then get you ready for set number 2. It's next. This is Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. From what they're affectionately called the block at Bowler, the student section, and they have been serenading us and continue to do so between sets number 1 and number 2. Gotta love that atmosphere heaven here on a home Friday night at Cougar Volleyball.
And of course they're singing the Cougar Anthem Back Home by Andy Grammer, which you can most commonly hear during the football games, and it sounds like these fans, as well as, of course, being excited for Cougar Volleyball, are happy to have football back on the Palouse.
Absolutely. Big football game tomorrow here between Washington State and Wisconsin. And again, a place that's now known as the Block at Bowler, right behind that service line. And we are happy to welcome you back into Bullard Gymnasium. It is 8th-ranked BYU with a 25-18 victory in set number 1. Really tight in the first half of the set, and then BYU just a little more efficient, really got on a run with Aria McCumber at the service line, and they were able to go on a big 6-point run, and with that, they end up winning 25-18.
And one of the things that the WSU Cougs need to clean up a little bit was their errors Pia Timmer had 2, Magda with 1, and Katie Ryan with 3. Normally those are 3 of their more efficient players, so hopefully they can dial it in a little bit in the next coming sets.
Yeah, the 6 errors quite a bit for the opening set. As a matter of fact, after that media timeout when the Cougars were down only by a couple, they went 2, 4, and 9 the rest of the way in the set, and were below the positive numbers category in that statistic. All right, second set underway from Pullman, and Iman Asanovic going to try and get Washington State going, and she will lead things off with the kill, and Washington State takes a 1-0 lead. It's so interesting in volleyball how each set kind of takes on a life of its own, and I don't know if any set, I mean, obviously you got to win 3, right? And a compressed 3 out of 5 every set just is that important to try and take.
Of course.
Go ahead, though, with your original thought if you want to.
Yeah, so like you said, on that last point right there, Iman Isanovic got the kill, and she does have 4, and she currently leads the Cougs in this game with a 500 hitting percentage, which you also mentioned is something that they are currently getting beaten by BYU, and hopefully they can start to become a little bit more efficient in this next set here.
BYU out hitting the Cougs 296 to 233. There was a service error, which is even things up a 1 apiece for Rakovic with an attempt, and now as we have a little bit of a battle at the net, this time getting her arm caught up in the net was Whitney McEwen-Lorenas, and with that, a net violation and a point to Washington State. And now their transfer, Lana Radakovic again transferring here out of UC Davis now to serve with the Cougars of the Washington State up 2-1. Solana steadying the other side, and here's her serve. Good serve. From the back row, Livingston, blocked back by Washington State. Now the attempt. The Cougars get a piece of that one as well, so we keep playing, and that one off a deflection this time, and Kate Pryor going to get the kill for BYU, so we're now even at 2 points apiece.
It made sense for WSU to put Lana at that service line, as she is currently tied for the team lead in service aces with 8, tied with 3 other players.
Now the Cougs have had a good service season so far. A little slow in Louisville, but have certainly picked it up over the last couple of weeks here at home. Overpass that caroms off a couple of Washington State players and gets back across the net. Now the attempt from BYU. Barbero got a piece. Washington State brings it back in, and a free ball for BYU. Set to the outside. Looking for a cross-court kill, and picking it up is going to be Elise Stowell, who will pick up her 3rd kill, and BYU takes a 3-2 lead.
We saw Elise with 6 kills in the previous match they played against UC Irvine, as well as 32 on the season.
We saw Washington State open up the season, taking on, at that time, a 4th-ranked Louisville team, a Louisville team that's now ranked 2nd in the country. How about BYU? They opened things up in Missoula, Montana, and beat a 5th-ranked Pitt team to open up the season. Now it's Katie Ryan with the attack, but BYU keeps it alive. Now Washington State with it. Katie Ryan, another attempt. Was that touched at the net? They're going to say no, and that'll be an attacking error, and a point for BYU to make it 4-2.
And going back to BYU's hot start at the beginning of the season, they were ranked 17th, then dropped it down to 9, and are now sitting at 8.
Yeah, that huge win to open up the season against Pitt, I think, opened up a lot of eyes for people as they were able to beat them in a neutral site, and then they've obviously stayed undefeated since then. Not a bunch of big wins. This would be a big one for them, and of course now playing in the Big 12 Conference, they're going to have some big top 25 matchups coming up. Remember, BYU with all of the conference realignment shuffles, now a Big 12 Conference team. Here comes the set to the outside. That one tipped at the net by Washington State. Will set it outside for Pia Timmer. That's going to end up out of bounds off the block, and Washington State has evened things up at 4 apiece.
Looking ahead at the schedule for BYU, they do play WSU right now, which is ranked 13th, and they still have a little bit of a tough contention ahead with 21 Houston, 14 Baylor, and 7 Texas.
Yeah, that's right at the beginning of their Big 12 Conference schedule. And the Big 12 Conference, a little bit different with schedules than a lot of conferences are. That one dumped across by Valentina Ung. They say it's pancaked up by BYU, and they're able to get the kill off the block attempt, and BYU, thanks to a very nice pancake, is able to take the lead here at 5-4. But the way the Big 12 conference schedule works is there's some teams that you'll play double headers against and others that you won't, so you'll play like on back-to-back nights. And so again, it's a little altered. One of the teams that they will have a doubleheader against is the defending national champions in Texas. Now Timmer to Yahawashima hits it. That's going to end up out of bounds on the serve receive, and I should say the attack receive, excuse me, and the point goes Washington State's way, and we're even now at 5 apiece. Good attempt that time from the libero. Again, Hiapo, a transfer in, had 13 digs in their opening match against Towson. She's wearing the white uniform tonight for BYU. Here's Timmer's serve, short serve. Right at the net. Isanovic tries to keep it alive, but can't. Winning the joust will be the BYU setter, and that'll be Whitney Bauer, and BYU picks up the point to take a 6-5 lead. Bauer, some experience, 5'9" and a setter. Eden Bauer also on this team. She's an outside hitter, both out of the Treasure Valley and Nampa. Eden, 6'3" and a sophomore, and a reserve player for BYU. Meanwhile, Amon Isanovic will put that one away. I think she was a little upset about losing that joust and took it out. All of her frustrations on the volleyball to pound it down.
Every time we felt a little bit of energy coming from the Cougs, you've seen it right after in Iman Isanovic kill.
6 apiece. Second set. Again, BYU winners of the first set, 25-18. Basham serving. The attack by Bauer. They say it hits the Terraflex court, and Bauer will get the kill. Point to BYU, and it's now 7-6.
One thing I think to be looking for this game that the Cougs could improve upon is you see them get a lot of their points coming from service aces, but we haven't seen any from them yet in this game. Hopefully they can clean that up and get some more points that method.
Norval, second contact. Now it'll be Isanovic to tip it over to the outside. Livingston getting the kill. Aaron, the 6'2" outside hitter from Corona, California, leading attacker now for BYU. She picks up her 5th kill without an attacking error, and now has 5 kills and 9 swings.
Going to Aaron Livingston, as well as the many kills she has leading the team, she is able to pick up some stats with digs, blocks, and service aces.
Yeah, she's a 6 rotation player. She can play every spot on the court for BYU. Meanwhile, at the service line, it's going to be again their setter Bauer. Norval with the pass, setting up for Timmer from the back row. Now Bauer, again, going to dump it across the net, but the Cougars get to it. Blocked back, though, on the Isanovic attempt, and getting to that one, that size up front that we talked about earlier. Kate Pryor, the 6'4" sophomore out of Henderson, Nevada, getting to that one.
I do want to go back to Whitney Bauer. She seems to really have a lot to do with the success of this team, leading BYU with assists with 236 and hitting percentage with 386%.
Now the set to the middle, punched over. Timmer there to play it. Now it'll be Isanovic going up the line for the kill. So Amon with now her 6th kill. That'll bring Washington State back to within a couple at 9-7, and they get Bauer off the service line, also important. And it'll put the Cougars setter to the service line. We'll see if Argentina can go on a run here.
Yeah, getting Whitney Bauer off that service line is key, as she has 12 service aces, only behind one other, Hannah Billiter with 13.
Washington State going with Timmer to clear the net. Now to the outside, going across. Timmer able to dig it out. Basham will set it up for Isanovic. That's going to be a little in-betweener that ends up falling in, and a point to Washington State. Not sure if BYU's coaching staff was complaining either about a back row attack or maybe a double contact on Kia Timmer, but Heather Olmstead is talking to the down referee about it. In any case, it'll be a point for Washington State, and on back-to-back points, they get to within 1 here at 9-8, and a chance for the Cougar setter to try and even things up in set number 2. There's the set to the middle. Good dig by Basham. Outside for Asanovich. An equally good dig by Bauer as we keep things going. Free ball for Washington State. Timmer to Oon. Now we're going to have a call against Washington State. That was Timmer going to the back line to get the pass to the front of the net. And they say Argentina's second contact, the set was double contact, and without a point BYU's way.
And on that last point, we did say Mia Lee there with that very impressive dig from BYU's side of things.
Now a serve for Livingston. To the outside for Katie Ryan. She'll get the kill. We mentioned a little bit of a slow start for Katie. Just her third kill to go along with 4 attacking errors. Again, what we've seen from the Cougars all tournament long and all home season so far is that balance. And so far you haven't had that third attacker step up. You've had Asanovich, you've had Timmer. If Katie can be that third one, that might be the secret sauce they're looking for tonight. Meanwhile, the set to the right side, blocked back by Washington State. BYU will keep it going. There's a block back in the Cougar front wall. That's Pia Timmer and Lana Radakovic, and the block is celebrating here at Bowling.
That's exactly what you want to see from the Cougs. Going back to that idea of balance, you've seen more of an offensive strike here, but they do need to have that defense, and blocks are, of course, one of the main parts of that.
10 apiece. Washington State with the serve. Another block by Washington State. Lana Radakovic one more time. Thank you very much. Katie Ryan on the assist. And now Washington State with the lead. Cougs had only one block before the last 2 points, and now back-to-back blocks, and they take an 11-10 lead. There's an ace for Washington State, or do they stay up? The Cougars thought it was down, but they will say it was pancaked up. And we keep going, keep that in the back of your mind. Meanwhile, there's a tip across. The band started playing because they thought it was a point. Now we keep going, that ball is long. And now we will see if there is a challenge here from Jen Greeny as to whether or not that ball was pancaked up cleanly or not by BYU. And there will be no challenge, I don't think, or we will see. We'll see if Jen Greeny wants to use the challenge. Also, again, I think the referee is going over to also maybe talk about game management because, again, the band had started playing. They had thought that the point was one for Washington State, so that's why they started playing. Meanwhile, is there going to be a challenge? It appears as though there's not going to be a challenge, and so we will have a point for Washington State. So a lot of conversations taking place, but other than a substitution entering and a point for BYU, nothing else really to report on here.
And that's just a tough play, honestly. Again, it's smart to not use that challenge, and there's not much you can do about the band, but you just got to keep playing with the momentum you've had the last couple plays.
Timmer with the big swing, but it's blocked back from her knees. Katie Ryan keeps it alive, and now Pia Timmer finding the back line for a kill. Washington State bobs back in front. It's now 12-11.
I always find those back corner kills as well as the cross-court kills to be the most effective for those hitters.
It'll be a serve for Washington State, and heading to the service line, it will be Lana Radakovic. Had a couple of big blocks which helped Washington State take this second set lead, and now we'll see what she can do at the service line. That one near the BYU bench, and will be a service error. And that'll be McCumber coming in for BYU to go to the service line for BYU. Again, she had a good run of serves at the tail end of the opening set. All right, 12-11 here. Or actually, with that last point for BYU, we're now even at 12 points apiece. Our down official kick continuing to, she's getting her steps in tonight. Not necessarily see that down official get so much workout in, but both coaches continuing to communicate with her. She's doing a good job of communicating with them, and here comes the serve. There to play it is going to be Barbero. The set will go for Pia Timmer, and that'll be a point. Well, especially considering the job she did at the service line for BYU at the end of that opening set, important that she was one and done here this time around for Washington State. So on the side out, it'll be Julia Norville now checking in. Of course, one-time teammates with Aria. Julia now into her 5th year here at Washington State. Her serve. Bowers will set to the right side. Norval able to dig it out. Now it'll be Pia Timmer with it. That is touched at the net by BYU. And with that, a point to Washington State. It's now 14-12.
And for the Cougs, you always love seeing Julia Norville on the court. Just the energy that she brings to the team as well as the athleticism. Not necessarily looking at the stats, but the all-around player and style of play that you don't see in the stats.
Here comes the set to the outside, partially blocked at the net. Then Timmer with the pass, set outside for Pia. Her tip, pancaked up by McCumber, and unable to clear it this time is BYU. Point to Washington State. A little bit of run here for the home team. And as we reach the media timeout in set number 2, it's Washington State on top. First set to BYU, second set to the Cougars so far. We still have a long ways to go. It's 15-12 Washington State. And we're back to Pullman. You're listening to Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. 15-12 Washington State with the lead here. And the Cougars, again, they are down 1-0, but it is a 15-12 advantage for Washington State as they've scored 3 in a row after we were tied at 12 apiece. By the way, tied for a 6th time, or actually make it an 8th time in this second set. Now BYU tries to get the point. Instead, Argentina Ung goes on the attack. Livingston digs it out. Set to the right, going up the line. Basham with the big dig. Timmer with the big swing. Deflects and out of bounds it'll go. Basham a huge dig, and then Timmer finishes it off. You talked about the enthusiasm from Julia Norville. They also all kind of feed off that energy from the 5th-year player in Carly Basham too. BYU wants a timeout. We just had one, but they want another. So we'll step aside as well and take a little bit of a breath. It's 16-12, Washington State on top, trying to even this match up at 1 apiece. And we'll step aside from Pullman. You're watching Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. Just looking at some of the behind-the-scenes work here, making me chuckle a little bit as we've had some wires get loose and we got a guy running around. Julia Norville at the service line. Played there and then set to the back row this time for Livingston. Blocked down by Washington State, but it's set back across, right back the other way by Argentina Ung, but she didn't get all of it, so BYU a good pass. And then Livingston able to get it past a Magna block attempt. It was 4 in a row from Washington State, but now BYU with the side out. We'd only had the 1 point, but BYU must have seen something that they wanted to talk about because they called a really quick timeout there.
I think part of that, what they might have seen, is the energy in this building. We talked a little bit about it a couple days ago, but again, this is just a solely volleyball facility, and you can definitely feel the energy in the building.
Here comes the attempt from Washington State off their serve receive. Timmer hits it over. Now to the middle, a little tip across. To the outside for Pia Timmer. Nice dig that time by Hiapo. Now Livingston with the big swing, and she'll pick up the kill up the line, and that will be a kill for BYU to bring them back within 2. Certainly out of the 6 matches so far here in Pullman, this has been the most attended, and the lower bowl filled. The block is packed with students, and now the rafter is starting to fill up as well with maybe some of the tailgaters outside for football tomorrow, realizing there's volleyball tonight as well. Meanwhile, Pia Timmer trying to give them something to cheer about, and she will. A cross-court kill. And how about Pia here in the second set? She is now up to 11 kills on the night for Washington State.
You really like to see that coming from Pia. Again, we talked about it, but she did have a little bit slower of a start to this season. But in the last couple of games, she's definitely picked up her pace.
Now Timmer set to go. That's a sharp serve, but played well that time by Claire Little. Blocked back by Washington State on the attack. Now Bowers goes into it. They're going to call Bowers a back row attack, and who are they going to call that on? They're going to call something on one of their players in the back row. They were saying that Bowers is a front row player, and she is. I'm not exactly sure what Darwin Jordan saw, but he certainly was convinced he saw it, and that'll be a point for Washington State, and it's 18-14. Now Timmer ready to go with her serve, but that's a little bit long, and a service error to give BYU the point. Again, we talked about this earlier too, Evan. So important each and every set in volleyball because, again, BYU gets this set victory. They're up 2-0 and cruising. Washington State gets this win. They all of a sudden got momentum, and we're all of a sudden even at 1 apiece. Basham to she goes on the attack. McCumber is able to dive after it and keep it going. Now Livingston with the attempt. Timmer's going to bring it back in play, and Washington State will keep the point going. Bowers to the outside for Livingston one more time, and this time they can't keep it going. Livingston puts it away. We mentioned Timmer with her 11 kills. Livingston, the leading attacker for BYU, she now has 8.
And going back to that last play right there, as you saw Pia Timmer run towards the stands, just to get the ball back in play, it allowed BYU to set up nicely so they could have a perfect opportunity to attack.
Now an overpass, and there to put it away is going to be their setter. Whitney Bowers only 5'9", but she has got no problem leaping into the air when the spot requires it to do so to put away points for BYU as well. She's very athletic.
Yeah, she has 25 blocks on the season. You don't really see that typically from a setter.
Now tries to put it away. Bauer got an elbow on it, but it goes into the net, and they can't play the deflection. Wasn't the cleanest hits of Argentina, but she did get it across and a point to Washington State, and it's now 19-17 in favor of Washington State. Second set action. If you're just joining us, it was BYU in the opening set, 25-18. Basham serving for Washington State. Bowers to the outside for Livingston. Basham able to dig it out. Now Timmer from the back, but she slips and can't quite get it across. Not sure if she slipped or whether she tried to make sure she was in the back row. They're kind of looking down to make sure there's no slick spot there, but a couple of things that she was looking at. One, to make sure she was behind the line as she came forward, because again, if you're a back row player, obviously you have to take off from behind the line, and Inca was kind of all that together in one there for PU.
As well as a little bit of a miscommunication, it seems, from WSU's part, as it seems as Pia was trying to rush in to save it there.
Yeah, maybe not the cleanest of sets either for her. Now it'll be Pia from the back row. This one dug out by Hiapo. Now Asanovic loads up on the overpass, and she will put it away. Alana Asanovic celebrating a point for Washington State.
She is fired up tonight, Steve.
That's the most we've seen from Amon wearing a Cougar uniform. Every once in a while when you have Carly Basham on your side, you got to be careful of flailing arms as well. She caught a little friendly fire, but Amon's okay. And now here comes the serve from Washington State. Set to the right for Livingston. Dug out that time by Timmer. Now it's Asanovic one more time. And she is as fired up as again we have seen her wearing crimson. Now 21-18, and Asanovic now joining Pia Timmer as the two leading attackers for Washington State. Timmer's got 11. Asanovic picks up her 9th. Washington State trying to even this match up. We'll take a break as BYU calls timeout. This is Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. Two big-time opponents going at one another here inside Bullard Gymnasium tonight. The first set to BYU, 25-18. Right now, Washington State leading the second set, 21-18. And KK making sure both coaches know everything is there. I think she's communicating BYU out of timeouts. Well, Jen still has both of her timeouts remaining. And it will be Argentina Ung to the service line. Up the near sideline, or the far sideline as you're looking at it, our near sideline, and then Livingston goes cross court, but Basham wisely elects to let that one sail by. That'll be one of the rare attacking errors for BYU, and Washington State now has opened up a 4-point lead. So Washington State trying to even things up here and pull them at a set apiece after BYU took the opening set. Next serve by Ung, played that time by BYU, set up for Livingston, and that will end up into the rafters, and that's off of Pia Timmer. Not sure if the young man upstairs is trying to be an extra for Washington State and play it back in play, but that's not allowed, and so you're okay. That's all again. BYU trying to get a towel as Whitney McEwen-Laranais coming over and grabbing a towel, shook her monitor. Very apologetic, but no need for it. We understand what she's doing. This is great here tonight. You're all good. There's still a few spots if you want to park it upstairs, but a lot of the folks, especially on our side, Elvin, have decided standing room only. They'd rather stand to watch this stuff here. This is, again, a great atmosphere here from Bullard Gymnasium tonight.
Yeah, with this level of competition, you see even in the rafters where people have the option to sit, they're standing proud.
Here comes the serve. To Timmer from the back row. Chiappo got an arm on it. BYU will keep it going. Free ball for Washington State. To the right side for Asanovic. She's now to double digits. What a second set and what a finish to this second set for Iman Asanovic. She now joins Timmer in double-digit kills for Washington State as she now has 10. 23-19 as Barbero does check in for us. Iman goes over to the sideline and gets a handshake from Julia Norval saying, hey, that was impressive stuff. Good serve there from Barbero. The attempt that time sent over by Pryor. The Cougars will play it. Timmer going cross-court, and now it's Washington State with all the momentum here in the second set. Again, BYU took the opening set, but Washington State coming back with a resounding reply here and now have a handful of set point opportunities. The freshman from Italy, Barbero with the serve. Chiappo plays it to the outside. That one gets through, but it's dug out by Barbero. Timmer, one more time with the kill. Give her 13 on the night. That's 6.5 kills per set for the fifth-year player out of Germany, and Washington State comes roaring back. Opening set to BYU, 25-18, but Washington State answers 25-19. And that pleases this home crowd at Buller Gymnasium as the band will play the players off the court as we'll step aside for the volleyball version of halftime. And then when we come back, all the numbers from the opening two sets. And then we'll get you ready for a set 3 tonight in Pullman. It's next. This is Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. Back here once again to Buller Gymnasium, all even at 1 apiece between the 8th-ranked BYU Cougars and the 13th-ranked Washington State Cougars. BYU 25-18 in the opening set, Washington State 25-19 in the second set. Evan, what's interesting about these two teams, we looked at some of the numbers. They've each played 8 matches. WSU has actually only 3 more kills on the entire season as a team, but have been more efficient, and that has been the case here tonight as well, thanks to that second set where the Cougars hit 375. They're out hitting BYU 304 to 203. The other thing too is, again, BYU had a pretty good block advantage, but the Cougars with 4 blocks compared to BYU's 2 so far.
Yeah, looking back on that last set is where we saw a lot of those blocks come into play.
And the Cougars very efficient offensively. That's the Washington State Cougars, and we get underway here. That one off of Asanovic as she did get the ball up, and now we keep going in a pretty lengthy opening point rally here in set number 3. Timmer from the back row, not quite able to get that one across. That'll be one of the rare attacking errors for Pugin. She leads the way for Washington State with 13 kills. Meanwhile, Asanovic, a really solid second set as well for Washington State. Iman now up to 10 kills. 1-0 BYU as they did get the opening side out. Radakovic tries to put it away. Joust at the net, and Bowers is going to win that one. We talked about her net presence despite the fact that she's only 5'9", and she wins that duel at the net for BYU.
Yeah, and she won that one against Katie Ryan, who has 12 blocks.
Yeah, gave up about 8 inches, but still won the joust. And so with a 2-0 BYU. All right, now Asanovic, that one blocked back, but it's out of bounds and a point to Washington State. Again, had that feeling out process in the opening set. BYU had the big 6-point run, then the Cougars the reply, and now who establishes momentum here early in the third set?
And Bauer's going to be a key part of that, as well as Aaron Livingston, as they've seemed to be leading the charge for BYU so far with the best kill and the best hit percentage.
That was a good serve from Barbero, who's checked in. Set comes outside for Livingston. That one kept off the deck by Argentina Ung and lobbed across by Radakovic. Now the attempt, and that one will be over and down for Mia Lee. She'll get the kill for BYU. It is interesting. And again, we got a long ways to go, but Bauer as the setter right now. You mentioned it's second leading attacker on this team with 5 kills. So she's been in an aggressive frame of mind tonight to go along with her 15 assists. You know, a little bit too much on that serve, and it's out of bounds, and a service error, so the point back over to Washington State to make it 3-2 BYU.
I think one key thing that the Cougs are going to want to look to, as we just saw it in one of those points right there, is that whenever they get out of formation, that they're able to come back, as BYU has taken advantage of them during those times.
Radakovic, that one sails a little bit out of the area play, and a service error now, and the point to BYU. Well, I think we've learned that these two teams, each high quality and each deserving their spot where they see in the top 25. And just been some good stuff here tonight. We'll see. We're knowing we're going at least 4 tonight in Pullman. Timmer to to the right side for Katie Ryan. Overpass. Magda going to put it away, and she will get the kill for Washington State. A great attack by Katie Ryan. They were able to get to it. But on the overpass, Magda was there to eat it up and get the point for Washington State.
Magda got all of that one hitting the back corner there.
So her 4th kill. So starting to see some of the numbers for the supporting players, but they have been led by Timmer and Asanovic have the Cougar attack. Meanwhile, Mia Lee gonna try and be that supporter here for BYU. She didn't have a kill in the opening 2 sets and already has a couple here in the early stages of set number 3.
And on the season, she does have 26 with a 277 hit percentage, which isn't awful, but it seems like she has started to pick it up in this match here.
And just a baby collegiate eligibility-wise, a freshman for this BYU team. There's a send across that time. Free ball here for BYU, partially blocked by Magda. Now the set will come outside for Pia Timmer, and she's got it dialed in just inside the line on the far side. Kill number 14 for Pia Timmer.
I'm telling you, Steve, those cross-court kills, especially from Pia Timmer, have been deadly in this one.
I mean, that sharp angle cross-court kill, there's not a lot you can do unless you just guess right and get to it and get off of a good pass, but it takes all of that to answer one of those attempts. Set to the right. There was a block that was touched by Isanovic, but it stays on the Cougars side, and that'll be a kill for Kate Pryor, sophomore out of Henderson, Nevada, who will now check out. She shares that spot in the rotation with McCumber, who checks in to serve.
And while not being in the top 2, you have to have hope for BYU with Kate Pryor being a sophomore and with Mia Lee being a freshman for the future.
Meanwhile, there's Amana Sanovic finding a back corner as well. So again, the 2 outside hitters for the Cougars have really got it going for them and have been really the force behind the Washington State attack tonight. Now, if they can get either a middle or maybe Katie Ryan going, then that's when they will hit full steam here going tonight offensively. Basham serving. The set to the middle, and that's going to be double contact on Bauer on the set, and so a point Washington State's way, and we're now even at 6 apiece. Again, a good serve by Basham, got him out of rotation, and Bauer had to go down to a knee and just couldn't quite get off a clean set.
And again, that's one of the things that Jen Greeny was talking about earlier yesterday, is that their main goal is to try and get them out of formation and out of rotation to take advantage of those moments.
Now a block from Washington State. They try and clear. BYU is able to keep it off the deck. Now can the Cougars get them out of rotation? Asanovic has it. Pancaked up again by BYU. Now they got a big swing block back, and we keep on going. Tip across by BYU. To the right side for a tip from Radakovic. BYU now with it, and from the back row, Livingston flies forward, but blocked down. Lana Radakovic with the block for Washington State. High quality stuff as BYU miraculously got it across to extend the point, but Lana setting up the brick wall at the front of the net.
And every time that ball came back over to the Coug side of things, you saw them. They did not panic. They kept their control, and they were able to get that ball where they wanted to, despite a couple different efforts from BYU.
Again, you look at numbers, and sometimes, again, they lie. You would look at the numbers, and you see 0 aces, 9 service errors for Washington State. I don't think it's been their best serving match, but it hasn't been that bad. They keep serving well. They just haven't got any aces yet tonight. Now, you don't want to see the 9 service errors. There's going to be one that's just beyond the line, and that'll add a 10th to the total, so we're now even at 7 points apiece. Again, 25-18 BYU in the first, 25-19 Washington State in the second. And now all level at 7 points apiece here in the third. And the serve to Claire Little. Norval plays it right at the net. Argentina with it, but it ends up off of Argentina and out of bounds on the joust at the net, and a point BYU's way.
And we do see in this one, it seems to be very back and forth again, each team having one set apiece, being 8-7 right now. Something tells me this one's going to come down to the wire.
Serve from Little, there to play it as Timmer. Asanovic gets that to Karen between the two blockers up front. Bowers was there, also there to try and get it was Whitney McEwen-Laurenanis, and it ends up bouncing off both their shoulders and through from Amana Asanovic on her pure power.
And that's just a tough ricochet. When you go at it with that angle, and it just will bounce off your teammate, there's not much you can do to defend against that one.
So Asanovic now with a dozen kills. Bowers setting to the outside, and Livingston to put that one away. She's in double digits for BYU and has 11 on the night. And once again, even. Now it is 9-8 BYU after we were even at 8 apiece. Now BYU takes the point. Meanwhile, out to the floor will go the athletic trainer for Washington State. Don't know, looks like maybe we got a little speck of blood out there that they want to make sure that they get cleaned up, so the teams will retreat over to the sideline as they will get that cleaned up over there. And now the Cougar players checking themselves just to make sure. It looks like maybe Carly Basham may have gotten just a little bit of a nick on her hand that they will look to try and get. So Carly will head on over to the sideline, and the Cougars will be given an opportunity to get that cleaned up before we resume play here.
And we did see a little bit there. There is a little splash of blood on Carly's libero uniform, as we can see on the white. Wondering what they're going to have to do about that one.
Well, they bring extra ones, and it looks like they've already got one out just in case they need to play one. It will be, I think, a different number, but everybody will know, and they would notify the book and let her wear a different uniform if they need to. They've also got the solution that they can spray on it and see if they can get it cleaned up that way. And I don't know if it's quite like a magic eraser or not, but somehow it cleans things up. That's technology beyond my knowing and means when it comes to the science and technology world.
Yeah, this is personally a first for me watching this. It looks like they're doing their best with the athletic training team trying to scrub it out, but we'll see if they end up switching.
Well, they got the different uni if they need it, but right now they're going to go ahead and hold it on. Now they're saying, well, Carly, here's the number 2 if you want to put that on it, so she may throw that on instead. So Carly Basham will get a different number to put that on for herself, and then we get this back underway. So now Carly Basham will officially be wearing number 2 here tonight. Not on the Cougar roster, but they will make that notification to the scorers table, and she will now be wearing the number 2 instead of the number 3 for her uniform.
It's only one number off, Steve. I think most people will be able to tell.
Absolutely. Plus the lone white jersey on the court on that side of the net also kind of helps.
Yeah,
right?
that one too. That one too.
All right, so good. And by the way, there's not another number 2 on the Cougar roster. That's just a spare uniform. And again, they have those ready at the get-go. And now Carly wearing the number 2, and we get things rolling again. And it'll be BYU serve with a 9-8 lead, and it'll be Kamaili Hiapo to the service line here, this grad student out of Gilbert, Arizona.
They will need to pause really quickly here, as it seems the Band-Aid has already fallen off of Carly, as they need to administer a new one.
Yeah, not sure. I know that in basketball they have a time limit, but I don't know if they do, if there's a clock on how quick or how fast that needs to be replaced. But in any case, we're all set and ready to go now, and we're ready for action to return. All right, 9-8 BYU, third set in the match that's all even at 1 set apiece. There to play it will be Timmer. Basham will set it for Ivan Asanovic. That's going to be off of BYU across the net and out of bounds, and Asanovic will match Pia Timmer with 14 kills on the night.
And one thing coming from the kill side of the Cougs is, again, that front line for BYU, they seem to be able to get up, whether it's their setter or the height that they have. And one of their methods that they've done is they've had the ball get tipped off of that line, and it seemed to work out pretty well so far for them.
The serve from Barbero, checked in for Asanovic. Radakovic keeps it up, and now Ryan goes on the attack. Dug out by BYU. Set for Livingston, and she'll find the back line for a kill to give BYU a 10-9 lead. So again, it's a 1-point difference as it's been close throughout. And now Whitney Bauer serving for BYU. Left-handed serve on its way. There to play it will be Barbero. Set for Pia Timmer. Piapo getting to it. Now Livingston, but first we're going to have a double contact on the sets. Had a little bit more of those called here tonight. They've been keeping a close eye on the sets on really both sides. What's that been now? 3 or 4 double contacts that we've seen called?
Great job on the officials' part of things, as they know the high stakes of this game, that they're really zoning in on those close calls.
Yeah, we've seen Darwin Jordan and KK all weekend long. They've done a good job officiating this tournament. Here's the serve now from Radakovic. Set to the right-hand side. That's going to be tipped at the net, and the Cougars can't play the carom. So we mentioned earlier Mia Lee, who was shut out and didn't have any kills in the opening 2 sets, now finds her 3rd in the first half of set number 3, and it gives BYU an 11-10 lead. Livingston now serving for Brigham Young. Steps to the line. Serve will be played by Timmer. Set for Magda. Nice dig that time, but the dig was getting to it. Couldn't get off a clean pass, and there was so much force behind that kill attempt from Maggia Halasho. There was just nothing Bauer could do with it other than get a piece of it. Now we're even at 11 apiece.
And the Cougs can only hope that Magda does continue to heat up a little bit here with 5 kills and a hit percent of .571.
All-time leading blocker in Cougar history, and also over the course of this tournament has eclipsed 1,000 kills in her Cougar career. Actually, in the opening match of this Cougar Challenge, past her head coach, Jen Graney, who was known as Jen Stenson back in her playing days, and she passed her on the all-time kills list, and now her assistant coach is the next player up that she needs to pass on that all-time kills list. That's Shannon Wyckoff-Hunt. A tip attempt does not quite clear the net. 4 contacts for BYU. Elise Stoll will be charged with the attacking error. They're going to end up replacing her and bringing in Claire Little once again to try and shore up the front line. And Washington State now has reclaimed the lead 12-11. And just as we have been in the prior 2 sets, nip and tuck through the first half of each of these sets. So the media timeout will probably be the first timeout taken. Little with the swing, but Barbero there for the pass. Now it's Maggia Halasheva going cross-court. BYU wanting the double contact on that set from Arantina Ung, but it wasn't called. And it will be a kill for Washington State. And they now have a 13-11 lead, but a rather heated BYU staff right now thinking that there was double contact on that set.
And that was headed by Heather Olmstead, the head coach. She was almost in disbelief there about that one.
Overpass, Magda there to put it away for Washington State. If we didn't have a media timeout coming, that doesn't matter. She's not going to wait for it. Heather Olmstead wants a timeout now. The 4 consecutive points from Washington State enough, doesn't want to wait another point. So we'll step aside in Pullman. Washington State won the second set to even up this match. Now they lead at 14-11 in Pullman. And we'll step aside. It's Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. A match that is even at 1 set apiece. 14-11 Washington State here in the 3rd set. And the serve will go to Julia Norval out of the timeout called by BYU. And Julia Norval to bring the serve across right at the net. A good save, but then winning the joust, Magda Yahalasheva. Well, she's kind of taken control at the net over the last few points. 8 up and overpass, and now wins that battle at the net. So the 5th-year player out of the Czech Republic able to give a 5th consecutive point to Washington State, and they lead at 15-11. Now the set to the right, getting a piece Timmer, and then with a couple of players converging, not wanting to have a big-time collision, they both kind of peeled off, and it will fall between Timmer and Basham, and a side out for BYU. Good hustle, good effort, but just couldn't quite get to it, and BYU trying to find some momentum of their own now at the serving line after Washington State had 5 consecutive points.
And again, you like to really see that effort. Again, there might have been a little bit of a miscommunication there, but overall the effort that the Cougs have been giving has really helped their case.
Hannah Billiter in to serve for BYU. It'll be Timmer with the attempt, and once again, boy, that is just a fine line. And how many times has she painted that sideline on her cross-court kills tonight?
Too many to tell. Pia Timmer and that cross-court kill has seemed to be the secret weapon that the Cougs have been using in this one.
16-12 Washington State, 15 kills now for Pia. Asanovic with 14 of her own as the 2 outside hitters have combined for 29 tonight. A good serve has got BYU scrambling. They get it across with the pass from Basham to the right side from Magda. That one touched at the net. And Washington State has now scored 7 of the last 8 and have opened up a 17-12 lead.
And for the second night in a row, I believe we see Julia Norville's father in the stands, standing up and coaching the Cougs from the bleachers.
I've seen him try and get the crowd into it. He's been a cheerleader, he's been a coach, he's been a dad, all rolled into one here tonight. That's what it means. They show up to a lot of Julia's matches. Again, she's in her 5th year out of Sacramento, California. Here comes the set to the right side, and a block down! Magda Yahawasheva and Iman Asanovic. And they have taken an 18-12 lead for Washington State. 8 of the last 9. They are even at 1 set apiece, but the 13th ranked Cougars now up a half a dozen in the second set. And we're back after this. A timeout. It's Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. Back again here to Bullard Gymnasium. 18-12. Washington State now with a 6-point lead as they have scored 8 of the last 9 points. Again, we were even, and the Cougars were able to go on a big run. It was 11-10 BYU at one stage in the set. Now the Cougars of Washington State up 18-12 out of the timeout. A kill attempt from the middle for BYU, but Basham digs out and Asanovic hits it over. Bauer to Livingston in the back row, and she's going to find a sideline. Livingston now has 13 kills. A side out for BYU, but now trailing by 5 here in the second half of this third set. They now need a run at the service line.
And for the Cougs, 5 is not an awful lead to have, and a big part of that has been because of Magda Yalashkova, up to 8 kills on the night.
Here comes the set from Basham. Asanovic has it. It is blocked back, covered by Amon. Now Amon with another swing. Again blocked back, though, and the wall there for BYU this time. Whitney McEwen-Larnes, and also there was their setter Whitney Bauer on the block, and it's now 18-14.
And BYU definitely needed that block, as that was only their 3rd on the night, and that needs to be a big part of their game if they're hoping to stop the trio of Pia, Iman, and Magda.
Norval will play the serve. Asanovic going up the line. That one just missing, so an attacking error this time. And a couple of points here for BYU as they're trying to crawl back into this one. They're back within 3 now at 18-15. McCumber had a good run at the end of the opening set, helping BYU to a victory, trying to bring them back in this set. Timmer from the back row. McCumber digs it out. Lobbed over by Bauer. Now the set to the middle. Magda hits it across. Livingston plays it. The set to the outside, and it's blocked back by Magda. Now set to the outside again. Getting a piece, Magda, and the Cougars can't quite play it in the back, and it's a point for BYU. So they've now scored 4 in a row, and all of a sudden Brigham Young back within a couple. So 18-16 BYU as they're going to bring a towel out to the middle of the Terraflex court to get that cleaned up out there. Also maybe to stop BYU's momentum a little bit, just a little bit.
Maybe, maybe not.
Now the serve again to Aria. Again, 5'6" grad player out of Hawaii. And her serve is there for Timmer. Set to the right for Magda. Goes cross court, dug out. Now a back row attempt from Livingston, but that one misses wide and will be an attacking error. Well, after the big 4-point rally there from BYU, that's an awfully big side out for Washington State after they established control in this third set. Still have the lead. It's a 3 now. It's 19-16 with Carly Basham at the service line. Serve to be played by Hiapo. Set to the right. And just getting it across and down is going to be Whitney McEwen-Lorenas.
I don't know if you noticed that starting formation from BYU, but I don't even know how to describe it. They all got in one single file line before to break on their point.
Now a substitution coming in. I think they wanted to double check how many substitutions they have. Is that now maybe 14 for them? Again, only allowed to 15. That seems like a lot at this stage, but maybe they are that deep into it. We'll double check on that. In any case, Claire Little now to the service line. There to play it will be Julian Orwell. Asanovic goes up and she will get it past the front row and just wide of a good attempt by Aaron Livingston to dig it out. And now not only does Iman Asanovic have 15 kills, but how about an attacking percentage well north of 400 for her?
I was just looking at that. Anything north of 400 is considered, I would say, pretty fantastic for volleyball, and you really like to have that efficiency under your belt.
Especially for an outside hitter with the volume of attacks that they get. Here's the attempt from Livingston. Popped up in the air by, that time, Radakovic, and that worked just as well as a set would, and Asanovic says, I'll take that one home for you, Alana. And the two newcomers for Washington State help put the Cougars on top 21-17, and that's kill 16 for Iman Asanovic.
I would say Iman Asanovic has adapted fairly well to the Palouse so far, won't you, Steve?
I would say so, yes. There's the serve from Argentina Young, set to the outside, and that is going to be a kill now from Livingston as they're trying to hang into the set. 18 kills now for Livingston, as it is now a 21-18 lead for Washington State.
One thing that I've noticed a little bit is I've seen a couple similarities with the way that you see Aaron Livingston and Pia Timmer play.
An overpass almost put away, but it ended up off a leg and ended back to the BYU side. And then Katie Ryan there for the block for Washington State. Sometimes you find the ball, sometimes the ball finds you. And it was off a Cougar leg and got across the net to keep the point alive. And then Katie Ryan there to put it away for Washington State.
And you can see after that play, it was all smiles from the Cougs, but now they have to get locked right back in for this next serve.
22-18, Barbero serving for Washington State. To the outside for Livingston, that's going to be a little bit long. It's 23-18 in favor of the Cougars. By the way, you mentioned Iman Asanovic and becoming a nice fit here in Pullman with her performance tonight. Now over 100 kills in her Cougar career and is approaching 1,500 in her collegiate career. The set to the outside for Livingston, blocked back by Radakovic. Set to the right. This time, Nia Lee going to find a sideline. And BYU will pick up the point to make it 23-19. Coming into this match, BYU had 81 blocks as a team. The Cougars had 49. But tonight, it's 8-3 Washington State at the net when it comes to the block. Bauer serving for BYU. Barbero plays the tough serve. Now Timmer comes forward, dug out in the back row. To the outside for Livingston. That one bounces off the net, and the carom ends up being a point for BYU, and they get it to 23-20.
And another thing, I wouldn't say it's as drastic as the block ratio, but digs, the Cougs do also have the advantage by a couple there.
Meanwhile, a ball that finds the back line. That'll be an ace now for Bowers. So now BYU on a late run to close the gap after the Cougars had opened up a 23-18 lead. BYU with 3 in a row, and they're back within a couple now at 23-21. Next serve played by Barbero. Set to the outside for Timmer. She'll get the kill for Washington State. And now it is set point for Washington State on Pia Timmer's 16th kill of the night.
What's nice to see from a coaching perspective, Steve, is we have set point here for the Cougs, but Jen Greeny has not used either of the 2 timeouts that they have available for this set.
Well, Lana Radakovic trying to finish it right here, right now. The Cougars have 3 set points. Washington State up 24-21. Radakovic's serve. Little plays it. Set this time for Mia Lee, blocked back by Halasheva, covered by BYU. Lee again gets across, but only with a good save. Now Timmer with the attack, and Washington State will take set number 3. And Pia Timmer with her 17th kill of the night. And Washington State has gone up 2-1, which pleases this home crowd. The first set to BYU, the last 2 to Washington State. What's in store for us in set number 4? We'll find out when we return to Buller Gymnasium on the Washington State campus. This is Cougar Volleyball from the Cougar Challenge on Pac-12 Insider. Washington State, everybody able to take a little bit of a breath here, Evan, as the BYU Cougars took the opening set. Washington State, though, in each of the last 2 sets, how about 375 for their attacking percentage in the second set, 387 in the third set. That compared to 143 and 196 for BYU, and you can see how Washington State's efficient attack, obviously led by their outsides, but their block has gotten going too, to also help and complement that, why they've now been able to take 2-1 lead over the 8th-ranked team in the country.
I was just taking a look at that hit percentage, and that's been the real deal breaker for BYU. If they want to have a fighting chance in this one to come out avoiding the upset, they're going to need to find some way to become more efficient with their attacks.
Well, Washington State now leading 2-1 here, and a chance to try and close it out in 4. BYU going to try and force an all-important 5th set tonight. Pia Timmer, 17 kills, hitting .316. Alana Sanovic hitting 16 kills, hitting .464. And Magda Halasheva coming alive in that third set, not only with 8 kills, but now 4 blocks, and Magda's hitting .583. An impressive performance from Livingston, just hasn't had quite the complementary pieces that the Cougars have had on their attack so far.
And you also do have to know Whitney Bowers hitting .444 as well. And again, some of the other BYU players just need to step it up a bit.
Here's the set to the outside for Livingston, and that does get through a Katie Ryan block attempt, and BYU will draw first blood here in the 4th set on Aaron Livingston's 16th kill. Again, we're seeing some high-level players and some high-level teams in action here tonight on a Friday night in Pullman. There's the set for Katie Ryan, who punches it across. A good dig by Hiapo. Now Livingston to hit it over. Basham forced to set. Asanovic has it, but Livingston there for the block for BYU. Again, the BYU Cougars have been outblocked 8-3 before that one, but Livingston able to go up and get it, and BYU now takes a 2-0 lead. Serve will stay with Hannah Billiter, sophomore out of McKinney, Texas, and her serve played by Asanovic. Set to the outside for Katie Ryan. That's going to be just beyond the back line, and BYU has started off the set strong, scoring 3 in a row.
And that good a little bit of time between the 2 sets is really, it seems, what BYU's needed to heat up a little bit and kill the Cougs' momentum.
Meanwhile, Billiter again on a little bit of a roll here at the service line, has opened up with 3 straight points. It'll be Asanovic trying to put an end to it, and she does, getting it through the block attempt, and then as the ball was at the net, kind of shoved it aside like that's about time that we did that, and it's now 3-1 on Amon's 17th kill.
And BYU's going to want to look ahead in that rotation they have going to get Billiter back up there at the service line with 13 service aces on the year, leading the BYU Cougars for this season.
So Washington State on the board now, and Barbero with the serve. It's 3-1 BYU, set for Livingston. Basham able to dig that one out. Now Timmer backing up to play it. That's going to be an errant pass, trying to scramble after it that time was Elise Stoll, but couldn't get off the clean pass, and Washington State has answered the 3 in a row from BYU with the pair from themselves. And it's now 3-2 in favor of Brigham Young. Freshman from Italy, Emma Barbero's next serve. Set for Livingston, waits for it, tipped at the net. Cougars trying to get to it off the deflection, but cannot. And a side out to BYU.
And that's a great effort you just saw from Carly Basham, really laying out for those balls that go beyond the service line.
Now it'll be Hiapo serving. Grad transfer out of Gilbert, Arizona. Here's the set to the outside for Pia Timmer. Gets the kill off the block. Pia now with 19 kills on the evening. Her most so far this season. Of course, the Cougars haven't had a lot of deep sets. They've had a lot of three-setters, and we're just getting the fourth set underway. Had a tremendous match against the Huskies a couple years back. That was her career high when she eclipsed 30. And right now, 19 on the night. Set to the right for Lee, but that one's gonna miss. Point to Washington State, and now Washington State even at 4 points apiece.
And going back to Pia Timmer, it is worth noting, not to jinx anything, but she is at 8 digs and is 2 away from a double-double.
Been a really good match from Pia so far in all facets of the game. Serve from Washington State. There's Bowers going on the attack. Barbero read it all the way to the back corner. Stoll plays it, but then it's into the fifth row of the band, and with that, a point for Washington State. So the Cougs of Washington State now on top for the first time in the set. It's now 5-4 in favor of Washington State. Serve will stay with Lana Radakovic. That serve, played in the back by Stoll. Livingston loads for Bear and puts it away. That'll be her 18th kill of the night. And we're now even at 5 points apiece as BYU ends Washington State's three-point run. Well, 2 sets to 1, Washington State. BYU took the first, the Cougars of Washington State the second and third. Bowers with the serve, set to the middle. Yahalashima tries to put it away, but Hiapo cleans it up. Bowers then, though, called for double contact. And a point back Washington State's way.
And one person on the BYU side of things that you can hope to see maybe heat up a little bit is Whitney McQuinn Lernis, as she has only hit 91 and normally is a little bit more aggressive with the kills, with 57, on the season.
There's the set to the middle. Dug out by Basham. Set this time for Magda. Block back. Argentina keeps it going. Now Timmer with the swing. Another block back. It's right at the net, but then ends up into the net and is out of play. And a point for BYU. This time BYU closing things down at the net. And we're even at 6 apiece. And now Asanovic checking back in for Barbero. So 6 points apiece. Livingston comes off the front row, which might be good news for Washington State, as Livingston out of the back row into the service line for BYU. Her serve played by Norval. Set to the right for Magda Yahalashima. That'll be a kill. And a point for Washington State. Seems like the Cougs have been able to capitalize, and I'm talking about Washington State a little bit, when Livingston goes to the back. Not that she can't get her kills from the back row too, but it seems like that's when the Washington State Cougars have been able to go on some of their runs.
Yeah, looking at it so far, it seems as Livingston has really carried this BYU team on her back.
Right at the net, we're going to have a point to Washington State. They'll rule the infraction on BYU at the net. And so that'll be another point for Washington State. It's now 8-6 as Bowers called on that infraction. And Washington State now up a couple here. Timmer set to serve again for Washington State. Her serve, played by Hiapo. Set to the middle, block back. Magda Yahalashima once again. She'll pick up the block, a 9-6 Washington State lead, and a timeout from BYU. Washington State up 2 sets to 1. They now lead 9-6 early in the fourth set, and we'll step aside from Buller, Jim, and Pullman. You're watching Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insider. Well, back here to Pullman, Washington, 9-6. Washington State with the lead. BYU going to try and find an answer with Eden Bauer checking in, the 6'3" sophomore from Nampa, Idaho. She is now into the contest for BYU. It'll be Bauer setting it to the right-hand side. That one blocked back, but out of bounds this time. And a point to BYU as Kate Pryor will get the point. And it's now 9-7 Washington State. Again, a rather full house here on hand from Bowler Gymnasium. Happy to have you with us on a Friday night of Washington State volleyball. That ends up being a little bit long on the serve from Nia Lee and a service error. Point goes to Washington State. Now they lead at 10-7. Serve to Washington State, and will be Carly Basham at the service line. A deep breath from Carly. Now the serve across. Set to the right. That one's long from Kate Pryor. And as we've seen here in the last couple of sets, that attacking percentage continues to dwindle a bit here for BYU. As a matter of fact, with that attack, they're now 4 kills and 4 attacking errors, so right at 0 for their hitting percentage. 11-7 Washington State. Overpass on the serve. The Cougars will play it on their side. Asanovic for the tip, just over the front wall, and Aman Asanovic with 18 kills for Washington State. So Aman with 18 kills, Pia Timmer with 20. That's 38 of the 52 for Washington State. Another serve from Basham. Setting to the outside. Eden Bauer hits it over. It's an overpass on the dig, and then there to put it away, Whitney McEwen Lorenas. And it will be a point for BYU.
One thing I think the Cougs have done pretty well is you haven't really heard too much noise from Kate Pryor. Against UC Irvine, she did have 11 kills, 5 blocks, and an assist. But tonight, she has only had 5 kills and a measly hitting percentage of 143.
Norval playing the serve from BYU. Asanovic going up for it. Eden Bauer got a piece, then it's hit over the net by Bauer. Timmer dives after it. Asanovic with another tip, and that one placed just right. They're saying nice heady move for Iman Asanovic. That's a couple of reading the defense and knowing where to hit it. She's now got 19 kills.
Looking back at Iman after the play, the smirk she had on her face, she knew exactly what she was doing, and she read right through that defense.
Now 3 kills shy of 1,500 in what's been a fabulous collegiate career. A little over 100 at Washington State, nearly 1,400 at Arizona State for Oman during her 4 years in Tempe. Here's the set outside for Eden Bauer, blocked back by Katie Ryan. Now the set again for Eden Bauer, and she's going to sail that one long, but they are going to call a touch. Jen Graney not sure that there was one, and she's shaking her head no, and the Cougars are going to challenge this. Pretty sure that what she's going to say is that there was a touch call, and Jen's going to call no touch.
She believes it's not touch.
Right. So again, call at the net was there was a touch on Washington State. Meanwhile, Jen Graney says no. Here's the first peek at it. Does that get up and over the outstretched arms of the middle Lana Radakovic? Doesn't look like Katie Ryan is any part of it, just whether or not that left hand of Radakovic, and didn't look like it, did it?
It didn't look like the ball really changed direction after crossing that net line. If you can really look there, you didn't. No, I think you can see the shadow coming over her hand there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be overturned, but we will wait and see the official ruling. Again, it was called a touch. Now they're going over to the bench, and we will see what we have.
It's reversed. There was no contact. It's going to be out.
So it is indeed reversed, and there is no contact, just like we thought. And with that, a point to Washington State. They've done a good job on the replays, and I think they've done, again, we talked about it throughout the night, they've done a good job officiating this weekend. That just seemed like it was clear that there was some space there between the outstretched hands of Radakovic and the ball.
Yeah, and we've had a really good look on our monitor here. We've really been able to see them zoom into those close calls and really make the correct call there.
Heads up, and a thank you to our camera crew and the staff working here in Buller Gymnasium tonight, as they've had a long weekend covering 6 matches as BYU ends up getting the point. But I want to thank all those folks on the cameras behind the scene, and the directors and the folks back in the Pac-12 office for helping us out for what's been a lot of action on this Cougar Volleyball weekend for the Cougar Challenge. And as you mentioned, we've had some good looks thanks to our camera crews. All right, a good serve there from BYU. Set to the outside for Asanovic. That one did look like it was touched, and indeed was. And a point to Washington State. BYU has already taken a timeout, so no media here. It's 15-9 Washington State. And Washington State up a half a dozen again, trying to close out a win over not only a top 10 team, but the 8th ranked BYU Cougars, but still some work to do. Barbero with the serve. Bowers tries to get to it. We're going to have what? We're going to have a call on a lift against Bowers. So she is going to be called for a carry. That one did just crawl over the net and get across. That's not something Heather Olmstead can challenge, but it's something she can talk to the referees about why it was called a lift and not. I mean, it's one of those where I understand the call. It's just, is it called consistently? And I think that's what Heather Olmstead's. But again, I think it was ultimately a lift. All right, here is the attempt from Whitney McEwen-Moranis, and that'll be a kill. The problem is that I would say maybe 8 out of 10 times it's not called a lift, and that's what Heather Olmstead's arguing about, is because of the inconsistency across the board in NCAA college volleyball on that call.
And it's hard to be consistent with
Sure
those types of calls because, especially with lifts, you don't really see those terribly often. The players normally have a good sense of control of the ball, so it's just a little bit more rare.
And you just don't see it as called as often as he used to either. And certainly the players have gotten better, I think, in recent years too. There's a good save at the net by Argentina Ung, punched across. The play extended, but Livingston still able to finish it off for BYU. Washington State has a pair of players with 20, and now Livingston 1 kill shy of 20 on her attacking for the night.
And you see there Livingston taking a page out of Pia Timmer's book with those cross-court kills really being one of the harder shots to defend against.
16-11 Washington State. Ung will set to the right this time for Katie Ryan with her best hit of the night. She'll go cross-court. Shares a kiss with Lana Radakovic, and with that, a point for Washington State. Timeout, BYU. Washington State up 2 sets to 1. Now up a half a dozen in the 4th set, trying to pick up a marquee win to open up this season. Back to Bowler to see if they can get it done. This is Cougar Volleyball on Pac-12 Insiders. BYU down a set, now out of timeouts, and down a half a dozen here in set number 4 as we welcome you back to Bowler Gymnasium. Washington State at the service line after the BYU timeout, and Lana Radakovic will do the serving here for the Cougars. That'll be played by McCumber. Set comes to the outside, and a block down from Magda Yahalasheva and Katie Ryan. Magda now not only with 9 kills, but you can add a half a dozen blocks to her total as well.
And in this set, and a little bit of the last one, Magda has been a key part of that offense that we've seen. Going into the game, she led the team in hit percent with 516, and we've seen that definitely showing here tonight.
18-11 Washington State. That one got a bounce off the net and did just stay inside the line for Livingston. So she now becomes a trio of players with 20 kills on the night. A pair for Washington State and Asanovic and Timmer. And now Livingston has 20 herself, but it's 18-12 Washington State. Serve to Bowers. Barbero plays it. It's into the seats, and that'll be an ace. Well, BYU has won the ace game tonight. That is their 5th ace of the night, and Bowers has been a really good server for them so far. Has 5 kills. That'll be her 2nd ace. And also 36 assists for BYU. But that one ends up long, and that'll be the 7th service error for BYU. Washington State can play the side-out game the rest of the way. BYU can't. They need some runs here late in this 4th set.
And again, as we talked about a little bit earlier, that service error is what's really been killer. We saw it affect Towson yesterday, and it seems that it's seemed to hit BYU too, having a couple more errors overall than the Cougs.
Here comes the set, and it'll be hit softly across. Cougars can play it. They'll set it up for Magda Yahalasheva, and that is going to be another point for Magda. She's the 3rd Cougar to double digits in kills. She now has 10. And all of a sudden, Washington State has opened up a 7-point lead over the 8th-ranked team in the country here in set number 4. Norval now set to go again for Washington State. Serve on its way. The set outside for Pryor, partially blocked at the net. Ung will set outside for Pia Timmer. They get a piece of it at the net. And now Pryor once again. Basham there on the answer. Timmer with the big swing. Good dig by Hiapo. Back the other way it goes. Now it'll be Timmer one more time with the tip. Good play by Bowers this time. Another battle at the net, and it ends up out of bounds off of BYU. Lengthy rally that has these Cougar fans on their feet. 21-13, looking for a top 10 win tonight in Pullman.
That was a great effort on both teams' part, as we saw Hiapo and Basham both getting some really solid digs there. It just came out the Cougars' way that time.
All right, so 21-13 our score. I think they just want the back line of the bench for the Cougars to make sure they're not in play back there. So they get them moved back just a step or two. And now Julia Norville ready for the serve. Up the near sideline, but that one will miss. The Cougars of Washington State did score 3 in a row before the side out for BYU. And again, a pretty sturdy lead here at 21-14 late in the fourth set. Now can the Cougars keep their foot on the gas pedal and finish off BYU tonight? It's Livingston at the service line. Her serve across, Basham to Ung for Timmer, and that'll end up being a kill for Pia Timmer. 21st of the night for Pia Timmer. And Washington State now leading 22-14. And how about those fifth-year players for Washington State coming up big with all their experience?
Those fifth-year players have been a key part of this team with Harley Basham, Pia Timmer, Shea Rubbright a little bit off the bench coming off injury, still a part of the culture. Of course, Julia Norville and Magda.
Attacking air for BYU, and now Washington State extends their lead to 9. The last time Washington State beat a top 10 team, it was September of 2021 when they opened up Pac-12 play with a victory over the 6th-ranked Huskies. Now trying to get a win over 8th-ranked BYU here tonight. That's an attempt that is going to end up off a Cougar and into the seats, and a kill for BYU to make it now 23-15.
And again, the Cougs have a pretty decent gap in score here, so they have a little bit of wiggle room. But again, shout out to Jen Greeny with great game management, having 2 points to win while still having both of her timeouts remaining intact.
Into the game, Alyssa Erickson, 6'1" junior out of Gilbert, Arizona. She will serve here for BYU as they need some points off of the serve. And her first serve is played by Norville. Magda puts it into the other side, but it's blocked back by BYU, so they do get a point off of their serve on the block. And with that, BYU back-to-back points, and it's now 23-16. The scoreboard here at Bull reads 24-15, but that was a point for BYU, so it is indeed 23-16. Now they got that corrected, and we get ready for the next serve from Alyssa Erickson. Takes her time. Cougar band trying to distract her as she approaches the line. There to play it, Norville. Set to the right for Magda. Blocked back once again by BYU, and this time it's Eden Bauer. So Bauer gets the block attempt and the block for BYU, and they've scored 3 in a row here.
And that was a tough ricochet off of Argentina on there.
Well, again, the Cougars had that wiggle room, and they're still up a half a dozen as Washington State, but it's now 23-17. Timmer with an overpass, trying to put it away Bauer, but Basham comes up to play it. Asanovic lines it up. It's blocked back by BYU, and they've now scored 4 in a row. You mentioned the 2 timeouts in the back pocket of Jen Greeny. Does she use one here, or does she let it play out? Maybe one more point. Again, if the Cougars can get a side out, they would have match point. But it's been 4 in a row here for BYU. And here comes the next serve. This time played by Timmer. Oh, we'll set it for Magda, punches it across, that'll fall in, and that'll be a point. BYU wanted double contact, but didn't get it, and instead it will be Washington State with a half a dozen match points.
And we see the coaches here really arguing that last call, trying to understand that, as their last hope seems to be dwindling a little bit.
So 24-18, Washington State has a half a dozen match points. Cougar students on their feet and the Block Cougar fans on their feet here for match point as they want to finish off a perfect homestand of 6-0. From the back row, Livingston finds the back line, so at least for the time being, the celebration put on pause. And BYU not going away quietly. They've scored 5 of the last 6. Again, good for Washington State that they built such a big lead in this fourth set because we've seen BYU cut into it. But BYU now needs 5 consecutive points off their own serve. McCumber's serve will be played by Norval. The set will come outside for Asanovic, tipped at the net. BYU puts it up into the air, set outside. There's a block back from Washington State. Arantina Ung, Ladaradokovic. Now the celebration in full force. Cougar fans and Cougar players enjoying a win over the 8th-ranked team in the country. Again, first win over a top 10 team for Washington State since they beat 6th-ranked Washington back in September of 2021. We've seen the Cougars jump up in the top 25 rankings each of the last 2 weeks, from 21 to 17 to 13. Not sure where they're going to land when we get to next week. We'd have to think it's going to be up, if anything, as again, they're ranked 13th right now, but they just beat the 8th-ranked team in the country.
And of course, you do have to give some credit to BYU. They did put up a good fight, and you should still expect to see them amongst the top 25 to possibly, you'll probably bump down a couple seeds, but you can still fully expect to see them in the NCAA tournament if they keep up the competitive play that they've just played with tonight.
Yeah, for BYU, again, they are going to get set for what's going to be a Big 12 season line ahead. They still have some non-conference action to get to. The Cougars have a couple of non-conference matches as well against both Baylor and Texas, but Washington State, again, gets it done in 4 sets tonight. BYU the opening set, then the next 3 for Washington State. How about 207 for Washington State in this set, but they still hit better than 300 on the night, while BYU hit just 169. That's probably the most glaring statistic when you look at the team numbers tonight.
Yeah, looking at the statistics like you just said, that 169 hit percentage really needs to get cleaned up on BYU's part for the remainder of the season.
Meanwhile, 21 kills for Aaron Livingston, both outside hitters for Washington State. Simply fantastic. As a matter of fact, how about the trio of Pia Timmer, Iman Asanovic, and Magdia Halasheva? Timmer, 21 kills and hit .312. Asanovic, 20 kills and hit .417. And Magda, not only 11 kills, hitting .421, but also 6 blocks. And you can't underestimate what Arantina Ung did tonight as well. 47 assists. That was directing the offense, 9 digs. Carly Basham, 16 digs. And also the Cougars outblocked one of the best blocking teams in the country in BYU.
For the Cougs, Washington State that is, it does not get much better than that.
All right, Burdette Graney, associate head coach, happy as he makes his way over to the sideline. Why not? You just beat the 8th-ranked team in the country, and the Cougars are now 8-1 on the season. Their only loss against the now 2nd-ranked Louisville Cardinals. We thought going in this could be a magical season for Washington State volleyball. Now they've got a top 10 win, a perfect 6-0 mark at home, Evan, and now a top 10 win on that resume saying, hey, you better watch out for us the rest of the way in 2023.
WSU fans can only hope to see when the next seeding comes out, their team break that top 10 of the seeds. And who knows? You never know what's going to happen in the NCAA tournament a little bit down the line, but they still have their work cut out for them. They cannot forget about the non-conference games at Texas and Baylor, as well as conference games, Stanford and Oregon a couple times this season.
Yeah, the Cougars trying to put themselves in line to be one of the 16 host schools, and the gauntlet has just started. More than likely 2 more ranked teams next week. We'll see when the top 25 comes out, but they will play Baylor Wednesday and Texas Friday. But the scenes have been fun here from Bowler Gymnasium tonight. If you're a Washington State fan, we're sure you enjoyed it in front of what was a pretty packed house here inside Bowler Gymnasium. Evan, thank you so much for your work tonight. It was a fun one, especially for Washington State fans.
Thank you for always. It's a pleasure to be here.
BYU, the opening set. Washington State comes back to take the next three, though. Washington State again 8-1. BYU falls to 8-1. And 13th ranked Washington State over 8th ranked BYU tonight. With that, we say so long. We wish you the best of your weekends, everybody, as we're just getting things started for the weekend. And we'll talk to you down the line. For the entire gang here in Pullman, Steve Grubb saying so long.